Welcome, everybody, to the Beer Guys Radio Show. Thanks for coming and hanging out with us. We do appreciate it. We're going to get rolling here with the show. If you have something to say, beer you're drinking, questions, comments, or anything, we have Thomas Monty from Schoolhouse joining us. Thomas, we'll do your official intro here in just a minute, but drop a comment in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. And with that, here we go. Welcome, everybody, to the Beer Guys Radio Show. Thanks for joining us, hanging out, having a beer, having some conversations, learning the new news and all of that in craft beer. I am Tim Dennis. Brian Hewitt, how are you doing?
I'm not doing too bad. How's it going, Tim?
I'm good, man. I'm good. We have a special guest this week, guys.
We do.
Something that it's been a minute since we have done. We have Thomas Monty, co-founder, co-owner of Schoolhouse Brewing. And Thomas, thanks for joining us, sir.
Thank you for having us. It's been about 5 or 6 years since
it's been a while. Yeah,
this.
Yeah. That's we've known.
When did Brunch AF come out? Because I think that was the last time you were on the show. It's been only a couple years, right? Or maybe it's been longer.
Oh, yeah, there was peanut butter and jelly discussion. Now that I think about it,
remember that?
Yeah,
there was even coffee mugs, I think, involved in it.
That's right.
There were. Yeah. That was one of our first special. I think that was our first special release, actually, or second. I can't remember.
Okay. That was a lot of beers ago, right?
Yeah.
157
different recipes before that.
Yeah. It was good times, man. We know Thomas a long time. Started with a homebrew shop and a bottle shop, and just grow and grow and grow. But Mo, Mike, Nate, how you doing, sir?
Doing well. Just happy to be here. Talk about beer.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, y'all, let's chat about our beers of the week real quick. I think a few of us are kind of headed in the same direction here. Brian, we'll start with you, sir.
Yeah, I did a pregame beer of a Sierra Nevada Celebration because they are out now. They're officially out. And if you needed another reason to drink them, this is a seasonal creep I can get behind. I'm fine with drinking this whenever it drops. But if you needed another reason to drink Sierra Nevada Celebration, this year Sierra Nevada will donate $1 per barrel to the NC Craft Brewers Foundation, which is a newly formed nonprofit dedicated to the growth and resilience of the North Carolina craft brewing community to, help them out with the aftermath of Helene. But so I didn't even know that when I opened it. I just looked into it and I happened to see that on their social media. I'm like, oh, I'm even more glad that I got this. But now that I've had that, I'm moving on to the collaboration between us and Schoolhouse, which is Beer Garden Backpacker, which is a fest beer. And later on, maybe in the show, maybe in the hangout afterwards, it'll be Oma Gang's All Hallows Treat, which is an imperial chocolate peanut butter stout. I'm looking forward to that one. I've been saving it for a few weeks now.
Fancy.
So, what about you, Tim?
As you know, man, I'm a one beer per show kind of guy, and I just absolutely had to go with the Schoolhouse Beer Guys Radio Beer Garden Backpacker. We're going to dive into this beer a little bit deeper here in a minute, but that's my beer of the week. Thomas.
Yes, sir.
Thomas, what are you drinking, sir?
I'm having the exact same thing, actually.
Look at that. Who would have guessed it? Who would have guessed it? Well, let's see if we can go 4 for 4 here. Nate, what are you drinking?
There was a continuity error.
A continuity error.
Oh.
I was not able. I know. Yeah.
Nate takes the L.
Yes.
So
one day you'll be part of the cool kids.
Yeah. One day. One day I'll manage my time better and be able to go to the brewery and pick up the beer.
Maybe.
But so I started with my pregame today. One of my favorite breweries in the state is closing this weekend, Elsewhere Brewing. So at the time of this podcast being released, they'll close on Sunday. And so I'm having my last can of Jest, which is a dark Czech lager. And then during the show right now from Parrish, I'm drinking their West Coast Ghost, which is a double IPA.
West Coast Ghost. Is it Space Ghost Coast to Coast?
I wish they had pressed into that more, but it is a very can design.
Very good stuff, man.
Is it a collaboration? Because they've done a lot of those Ghost collaborations, but maybe that's the Ghost in the Machine.
Isn't that WeldWorks? No, that was a different one that they just dropped.
Sounds like one of their Ghost collabs, doesn't it?
Yeah, it kind of does.
It's,
the West Coast
it's a Ghost variant, but it's not a Ghost collab.
Okay. So many ghosts. It is spooky season, so it seems like that is appropriate for that. Yeah. Well, guys, before we dive in, there is one story I wanted to give you all an update update on. I think Brian has the details on it, but we had told you about a couple of times the situation with Bevana. They were the company that tried to be kind of a craft brew conglomerate kind of thing, taking a bunch of people under their wing, whether through distribution or taking the full rights of it. There was a lot of drama with it. We talked about Pontoon Brewing, and they actually forced Pontoon to close temporarily because of things that went along with those issues. But they were attempting to restructure, I guess. And Bavana is tied in co-ownership with D9 Brewing. And in an effort to restructure, the short of it is it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. They're closed. Apparently, their plan for restructuring was rejected, and they had 30 days to submit a new plan. But allegedly, I'll say this is allegedly, that everybody just decided to liquidate. It sounds like that they're not intending to submit another plan. So that's D9 filed for bankruptcy about 6 months ago. Location in Cornelius, North Carolina. So they had said at the time plan moved to a new location, but it looks like that has changed. And that's we've said before. Not many breweries pull off the Lazarus
Not
move
many.
there. So they talk about we're going to close, we're going to reopen. Very, very seldom happens. But Brian, I actually think I kind of hit the high points of that. Anything else to add?
I think that
on
covers
this
everything
situation?
I know about it. And speaking of the
Yeah.
Lazarus maneuver, you mentioned Pontoon. They are one of the few that
They
not
are.
only
Yeah.
they were gone, and I thought, oh my God, they're gone. And like I wouldn't have expected that, but they came back, and they're still rocking and rolling as far as I can tell. So
I was a
yeah.
naysayer when they said they were coming back, and now they did. So Pontoon had 2 locations. They did lose 1 location in the deal, so they kept their original, I guess, their flagship brewery open, closed the second location as part of their, I guess, restructuring, kind of get back on your feet. So, props to them, because it was a substantial financial hit
It
to them,
was,
the stuff that went on with Bevana. So the fact they were able to get things restructured and get going is pretty awesome. Thomas, as a craft brewer, were you familiar with the Bevana business plan, kind of like what their method for success was supposed to be?
Yeah, we talked to them at one point, and it was kind of like you said, it was like a conglomeration of, do they take your brand, or are they going to be your co-packer, let's say, and then you can go nationwide, or I think they were in 32 states or 36 states. I can't remember right off the top of my head. And then they would do the distribution. And the beauty of their idea was that you wouldn't have to have any of the salespeople in each state. And if you look at that from a business owner's perspective, you're like, oh, well, all I have to do is worry about QC at this point. Well, that was great when, especially in, I hate to say this, 2020, when everybody was buying off the shelves because of COVID.
Yeah.
I mean, anybody who had a canning line was printing money. And so people got into this, and they were doing well. And then it slowly started to do this. And we've seen this in the last 4 years. We all have, that the decline at the C stores and that kind of thing have just really hit the distro model. So that was their decline. And what I've talked to inside the industry, there was some shady dealings going on also. Don't know exactly what it is. I don't want to rewrite history by any means, but I think it was a money grab on how distro was going, and it just didn't pan out.
The big thing I thought with that, from the first time that I heard their plan and kind of what they had told some of these craft brewers, just like you said, look, we're in 32 states. We're going to offer this portfolio of craft beers and get into national chains and do all of this.
Yeah.
As a craft beer consumer and podcaster, I guess I'd go as far as to say I'm on the media side of craft beer.
Yeah.
Sometimes I just feel like a consumer plus or something, but we talk to a lot of brewers. We talk to a lot of breweries. We talk to a lot of consumers. So we do have a bit of our finger on the pulse of what's going on out there. it just never made sense to me how you could have success, say 32 states, to Pontoon, Orpheus, popular. Orpheus, Pontoon. These guys are popular in Georgia. They're really popular here, but you go maybe one state away, 2 states away at most, they don't care.
Yeah.
And mainly, especially because they've got 30, 40, 60, 100, 200 local craft brewers and a limited amount of shelves. So unless you just get lucky and you've got one of those beers that gets hyped that everyone across the country wants it. And I don't know that we've ever had one like that here. You know what? Halfway Crooks, a lot of people are talking about that. We had, yes.
2, 420, Tropicalia. Both of those, you could say right off the bat, they have been wanted worldwide. So I give props to both of those companies. But a small brewer such as Orpheus, let's just stay with Orpheus.
Sure. Okay.
I don't want to. The hype beer craze is dead. Let's all
it is.
Let's have some fun with that. And and I actually applaud it. I personally think that if you can build a niche in a community, you're better off than being in 50 states.
Right. And the thing is craft beer is a victim of its own success, I think. You talked about 420 and Tropicalia. 420, definitely a different time when it came out.
Oh,
but even Tropicalia, it was a different time when Tropicalia came out. So we talked about it before, years back, Thomas, when I get 2017 to be exact, when the laws changed, when you could start doing direct sales. I saw breweries doing a release every week or 2 releases a week. And for every one, they were making an event. They were making it this big thing. And I made some kind of comment to the effect of, basically my point was, if everything's a big deal, then we're going to get to the point where nothing's a big deal. And someone made a comment to me about, are you complaining about there being too much good beer? And I'm like, well, kind of, yeah. And it's not that I don't want all this beer out there, but if everything's a big deal, then nothing's a big deal. You know what? This week was Black Tuesday for the brewery. 7 years ago, maybe, when they had Black Tuesday, they did their online sales. It was one of those things where you can't get in the website. You get a beer in your cart and it's no longer there when you go to checkout. You do this and that. The last couple of years, they have emailed for weeks after saying, hey, get it before it's gone, and that. And that's just because of the availability of craft. Good for us as consumers that, I can go to a Schoolhouse, I can go to Halfway Crooks, I can go to a Good Word, I can go to Reformation that's, if I wasn't so lazy, is walking distance from me, and grab a beer. I can do that and get good beers to where Brian and I legitimately drove around chasing delivery trucks a decade ago to try and get a couple. We tried to get a couple of those. So just a different time.
Which just sits on the shelf.
We did. KBS when Goose Island, when BCBS first came here. But so I think that's what it is, Thomas. We're seeing that, and to tie that back to the Bevana, I just don't think they had the right timing for their business model and what they were trying to do. And I'm not sure how they got so many craft brewers to buy into that, because I would imagine most of them know. But Thomas, you may have addressed that a little bit, where you're saying it's nice for the brewer to say, all I got to do is brew beer, and then
trust me
there. So
God bless, trust me. And you hinted at it earlier. I was on both sides of that. I'm very blessed that I've seen both sides. I'm glad I hadn't seen the third tier in our. I'd never worked for a distributor. Never cared to. But I was a retail package, and now I'm a manufacturer. Being able to see both sides, especially, we opened up Schoolhouse Beer and Brewing, the bottle shop and home brewing store, 11 years ago.
Right.
And that's how long we've known each other.
Yep.
And
wow. Yeah.
Yeah. Crazy,
we brewed a collaboration beer with you, with our Reddit crew.
Yes,
that's right.
Many years ago.
Yes,
I think maybe before Beer Guys Radio even started. So that would be looking 8 or 9 years ago. when we
I
did
remember
that.
you coming
So,
in and sitting down and telling me about Beer Guys Radio before it got started.
that's right. We did.
That's
We
cool.
Yeah,
did.
we had a sit down
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
so,
sure did. Yep.
It's, but looking at, I remember what Black Friday looked like when we had the drop of, Goose Island, and we had Monday Night doing all theirs, and which I love all those beers. But I know, well, local bottle shop that used to have the private sale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
You remember that? And
Absolutely.
that's not a thing
Yeah.
anymore. And people would line up. I mean, I'd have people lined up down the street trying to get these beers that now are collecting dust on the shelves. I mean, it just blows my mind.
It's crazy. Yeah, I mean, and you know what? I've got to say that, I'm no different than anybody else when Cascade first came to Georgia. That's Brian.
God.
When they first came to Georgia, their first appearance was at the Decatur Beer Fest.
Yep.
And they were not announced to be there. We just happened to walk by the booth as they're uncased, and we're like, whoa. So we drank that, and then when we saw them on the shelves, we grabbed as much as we could. And then the next time I'm in there, I'm like, well, they're here now, and they're $35 to $40 a bottle.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I'll get some later there because they're here. But then it just became, it was not a big deal because they were on the shelf. And if I decided that that's what I wanted, then it was easy enough to go get one.
They became a little less special because I'd fly back to Portland to visit friends and family, and I'd buy everything I could and bring it back because I wouldn't have a chance to see it again, and I would have an opportunity to drink those with my friends here. When you go out and they first arrive here, you buy a bunch of 750s. You realize the next time you see them, you haven't finished the ones you just bought, and
Right.
For whatever reason, bottle shares were happening less and less often. As obviously COVID would have stopped that completely. But so you'd be sitting on these. I'm like, well, I would get more, but I still have some at home, and I should drink those. But honestly, how often are you going to open up a 750 of a big sour ale by yourself and try to work through that? Like, you know what? That needs some Tums or something like that.
Yeah, that's a 2 o'clock in the morning Tums situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think you hit on it, Brian, that we saw it and we're still seeing it in our tap rooms today. I think on Saturday, we even discussed it a little bit, that people aren't going out as much.
Right.
My wife and I used to go out to dinner 2-3 times a week because it was just convenient. And then we had the shutdown, and we figured out that, you know what, it's more economical. It's almost more fun just to stay home, play some cards, listen to some music, boil a little pasta, make a little gravy, do that kind of thing. And we see it in our tap rooms right now. And that's where, if you don't pivot as a brewery, and I think that's why we're seeing a lot of closures, and I could go into my diatribe about that the breweries that aren't changing with the times aren't going to be able to make it, because putting a shingle, opening a door, putting your shingle out, saying we brew beer, and just thinking that people are going to rush into your brewery to drink beer, it's not going to happen, because there's so much beer coming in from outside, and the availability is everywhere.
Yeah. We've got our friend of the show, has been on many times, still good buddy of mine, chat with him pretty regularly, but Scott Hadeen and Burnt Hickory Brewery, he got stuck in, when he opened under the old Georgia laws, your location wasn't important. It didn't matter for a few reasons. For one, we had like 30 breweries in the state, less than that at one time. So
he was like,
your brewery was a destination. Your brewery was a destination. People would find you. It didn't matter where you were. So everybody was open and in cheap real estate. And, Burnt Hickory was in kind of it was a weird office park with some distribution centers and some kind of auto parts distributor and stuff. But that was fine when he opened up, and then as things changed and things start to kind of quiet down a little bit, they were looking to make a move, and they were going to go into a place that had a lot more foot traffic, had residential area and stuff. The development that they were going to move into postponed the build out of the development. And that was enough to put the nail in the coffin. It's like, hey, we're trying to make it here where we are right now to move over here. And they're like, well, this is delayed for a year. And they're like, well, that's just too much there. So, and that there's still a few breweries. Unfortunately, we're seeing most of them close, but the breweries that opened up in, the industrial places, the backyards and that, talking about 420 with Sweetwater, they're one there. Their method was they just took over the block and turned it into a whole commercial area down there. That was their method. But Thomas, to really bring the point close to home, your Marietta brewery, a little bit of a spoiler here. You had 2 locations.
Yeah,
your Marietta brewery is popular. You've got your fans, people come in, you stay busy there, you're doing well there. You had another brewery in town, Atlanta area called Emery Point.
Yes.
And you had to close your Emery Point location recently, correct?
We're not closed yet, but we will be this Sunday.
Okay.
So by the time this, I don't know when this will be posted.
This will go out Saturday morning. Yeah.
So you got a day to swing by and check it out if you're
in.
So
come by. This the 27th or 28th. I can't remember what Saturday or Sunday is.
27th.
Is Sunday.
There you go. October 27th. You've got till October 27th.
Yeah. We had to shutter our doors, and it's kind of funny. We're opposite of what you were just saying, because Emery Point was a mixed-use community with 500 luxury apartments above it.
Right.
CDC was right across the street. Emory University right beside us. But we got stuck into a dying mixed-use community, let's be honest. And we've been pouring money in from our Marietta location into the Emery Point location. So we've had it open for 2 years, and it's been hard. We thought it was a home run. Sitting beside a Michelin recommended, Michelin star recommended restaurant.
Yeah.
Not like a Michelin tire place. And it just never panned out. We threw everything that we've done over and over and over at Marietta. And it's funny, we're tucked into a very odd location also in a business park beside an elevator factory. And we've done swimmingly well where we're at. But we've had to pivot with what we do. And that's the kind of thing that I think that a lot of breweries aren't able or aren't willing to do.
Yeah.
One of the main things is I kind of joke that I used to own a brewery. Now I have a entertainment location that makes its own beer.
Right.
That's about accurate.
It's an additional. We also make our own beer there. But, very good point, Thomas. Talking about the quote unquote formula, what works, what doesn't work. And this is, I don't think it's just specific to Georgia. I think a lot of places, the location is very important, but
hell yeah,
that is not a set in stone rule, because you're in a location that if we use the quote unquote rules is doing well despite where the location is. Conversely, your location that was in the place that should have seen success didn't. So
that is interesting. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And
crazy stuff.
I hate to lose, and I don't compete against other businesses. I compete against myself. I think it's when I don't do 100% of the time, it bothers me. And this closure has taken a lot out of me. It truly has.
Yeah.
It's been very emotional. and taxing, to say the least. I can't imagine having to close all of our breweries. And this doesn't mean that we're not going to look at maybe another spot again, but we have to recoup what we've already lost.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the, you know,
Take a breather for a little while, right?
yeah. If you don't take the shot, you can't win the game. And we took our shot. You know, if you just sit on the sidelines and point fingers on why things close and you're not in it, you just don't know.
Sure.
And
there's a lot of people that never just fear of the unknown. There's a lot. It's stressful opening the business, you know, going from, for those that are going from a steady paycheck that hits your bank every Friday to that, you know, there's a lot to it. We talked about it a little bit before the show, Thomas. You know, I had my own business for about 7 years, and for 5.5 of those, I did really well. But then there's times where you know, not only is the paycheck not hitting the bank on Friday, but maybe not for Q1 or, you know, things like that. Just depending on how things are going, you got to make sure your people are getting paid and everything else is being taken care of.
And, you know, the one thing I could tell anybody that wants to get into any kind of business, find an amazing mentor. I have an amazing mentor, John. John has been in the tech sector for years, and he's done very well. And he's seen losses, he's seen gains, and I call them my guardrails.
Okay. Yeah.
A great friend, dear friend. But if you don't have a business mentor, and if you don't have somebody having any guidance, you know, it's kind of like restaurants. You know, 6 out of 7 restaurants fail within the first year because, yeah, you're a really good cook at home, but are you really good? Are you able to deal with cost of goods? Are you really able to have both hats on? We're in a business that is blue collar, white collar, and there are very few of us. It's more of a trade business than it is like a tech sector business.
Right. Yeah.
You know, I'm on deck tomorrow boiling a stout for 4 hours tomorrow. So I'll be on deck from 7 in the morning till 7 at night. And I'm 50 years old.
Yeah.
Good,
it's hard on those old bones, right?
But you know, but then you have to turn around and think about the marketing. You have to think about, you know, is the beer worth making for that cost? Back in the day, you could charge Cascade could charge $40 a barrel or a bottle because they were putting, you know, $10,000 in on X amount of barrels. And that's how they had to price it. We can't do that any longer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We're, again, another thing we were talking about just like fast food and the cost increase there. People are, even cheap food, people are not able to buy it because of the cost. And, you know, beer, let's be honest, craft beer.
I went to Taco Bell the other day and it was like $20. And I was like,
man, you used to be able to eat real good for $3 at Taco Bell. I don't know what they're up to there.
Like 4 tacos and a drink. And I was like,
yeah. I remember when things were cents, like I think it was 79 cents or something for a taco, something like that.
I used to get them for 69 cents. The chili cheese burritos, I get 2 of them. Yeah,
those are good. The
69 cents a piece. Yeah. Get a bunch of those.
So Thomas, to spin and talk some positivity here. There's still good stuff going on in craft beer, right?
Man, I don't know how much I can curse on here.
You can't. You got to stay clean.
You still cannot.
So we'll add it if one slips out, but. We got together last week. We appreciate
you saved all your cursing until the good news. I'm like, this is weird.
We appreciate that.
No cursing during the bad news.
That's how excited he is.
Yeah, during the good stuff.
It's exciting. So we got together last weekend, Thomas, and we did an event. So we had just to throw out there, Thomas's Marietta Brewery also has what's called the Teachers Lounge Arcade.
Yes, the
Teachers Lounge Arcade, which has several pinball machines as well as like an arcade machine. There's a ping pong table out there. He's got some console gaming and that, but we got together on my day job. I am co-chair of our fundraising committee, and Thomas very generously, I approached him and I'm like, Thomas, if you don't do this, Brian's going to beat you up. And he's like, all right. So, but we had a pinball tournament to raise funds for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. We brewed a collaboration beer, launched that. Part of the proceeds of that going to St. Jude as well. We had some raffles with really cool prizes and stuff. But Thomas, these are the kind of things you talked about being an event venue and that. I think that's a great event to do at a brewery. And before we dive into that more, tell us more about the beer and fill people in on how they can brew this beer for themselves.
Oh, well, there's great. Thank you. This is awesome. Well, Brian was the one who came up with the idea of the fest beer right off the bat. He was like, let's do a fest beer. And it was like, I was like, yes, that's perfect. It's the perfect time of year, October. You know how it goes, especially in breweries. Beer geeks like us, we all know what a fest beer is. But then when somebody comes in and goes, what's a fest beer? And I've kind of trained my staff just to say, it's kind of like a Marzen Light. And I know that's a horrible bastardization of what it truly is.
But it gives people an idea. Right.
People hear that and say, oh, okay, yeah, all right, yeah okay, I get it.
Yeah, it's so not that, but they'll enjoy it. It really, and thank you, Brian, for bringing it up, because I got to do some more research. It's been probably 8-10 years since I brewed a fest beer, so I had to take some time, look into the water chemistry of the ones I like. I had to look at some grain bills and that kind of thing. Got to grow up some yeast, and it was a challenge, and I didn't really want to admit to that.
Easy peasy, man. Easy peasy.
Oh yeah, because lagers are so easy. Yeah, they're just the easiest beer
for sure.
So what we did was we came up with the malt bill, and I think it turned out amazing. I was worried about the time that we had to age it and really lager it the correct way, but it came out. I think it's an amazing representation of the style of beer. But if you guys want to brew it, the great part about us at Schoolhouse Beer and Brewing, we actually still have a home brew shop. Because if I were to close that home brew shop, I would have had hundreds and well, not hundreds of thousands, but thousands of people upset with us because we closed down their local home brew shop. So when we opened up the brewery, we still have our home brew shop. And I looked at like Bell's Brewing, and I was like, okay, they still have a home brew shop. Why can't we? So I did, and we give away all of our recipes. So if you want this recipe, it will be online really soon, or you can email us, and we will send it to you. You can actually order it online too. We actually send out recipes quite often, all over the United States.
Very cool. So there you go. If you are not in the Atlanta area and you didn't get a chance to drink the Beer Guys Schoolhouse Collaboration Beer Garden Backpacker, you can just go on and order it and brew it for yourself there through Schoolhouse Brewing. How convenient is that? That's good stuff. Thomas, we're going to move on here in just a second. Brian, real quick, why don't we thank our sponsor, Truck and Tap?
Yes. So we are deep into spooky season at this point, and that calls for the darkest of beers. That means my Truck and Tap picks for this week are all stouts. At Truck and Tap Woodstock, I'm definitely going with Brooklyn's Black Chocolate Stout. I've been a fan of this beer for years. Yep, Thomas knows. It's a fantastic beer. It's a Russian Imperial Stout that doesn't actually include any chocolate. All that chocolate flavor comes from a blend of 6 different malts, and it's a great beer. And it tastes better the warmer it gets. I don't know how this magic works, but anyway, at the Duluth location, my pick is Monday Night's A Stout for All Seasons. It's a rich, dark. It has rich, dark chocolate notes, hints of marshmallow, nutty coffee, vanilla, and only an ABV of 6%. So it's like having your cake and eating it too, or like 6% of your cake. At Truck and Tap Alpharetta, I feel obligated to get Young's Double Chocolate Stout, which is a classic semi-sweet milk chocolate stout from the UK. They've been making this beer since before the concept of pastry stout even existed. And finally, at the Lawrenceville location, I am so happy to see Parish Rev on tap. It's a great stout featuring coffee from Colombia and Java. If you like coffee and you like stouts, you got to try this one. I buy this one all the time, almost every time I see it, but I would get it again at the Lawrenceville location. If you happen to be listening to the show the day it drops, put on a costume and head over to your local Truck and Tap. There's a Halloween party going down, and they're giving out prizes for costumes. But if you're listening to it later, don't worry. There's always something going on at Truck and Tap. To get all the details about beer, food, events, and more, head over to truckandtap.com. And thank you to Truck and Tap for your support.
Truck and Tap rules. Thank you very much.
Yes.
We appreciate it. So, Thomas, going back to our discussion about beer and pinball and all that fun stuff.
Yeah.
We hosted the pinball tournament, and it sounds like from the funds raised, we had 36 and a half people in the tournament. So,
Yes.
which it really messy doing it that way, but what are you going to do?
Yeah.
But how recent addition? The Pinball Arcade, the Teachers Lounge Arcade, is a fairly recent addition. You had a couple machines, but how much of a draw is that for you having that there at the brewery?
It's doing great. It was a great addition. That you, Tim, Brian, you both remember that used to be our office.
Yeah.
And so we kind of thought, well, let's make a pivot, and we worked with our friends over at Portal Pinball, and we're doing like a co-op with the pinballs, the pinball machines, and it's doing very well. It's not so much a draw for us, but it's also for the people that come in and are just having a beer. They'll stick around for a little bit longer. We do see a lot of people come in that because we have some really heavy hitter games. Some of our titles are amazing. Actually, we're getting a new one on Friday.
What you get?
Tell?
Is it the new Metallica? Is it the new Metallica?
No. It's
all right.
Jersey Jack's Avatar.
Oh, I'm in.
Okay.
All right. So if you know pinball, you know Jersey Jack. I suck at all his machines, Thomas, but I love
Me
them.
too.
I really like them.
They're beautiful. Oh
yeah.
my God, they're so glorious to look at. The lighting.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
so much going on.
So good. Yeah.
We have two
cool.
of them at ours. We got Godfather and Elton John. So we'll be putting Avatar in. Found out that today. Really happy about that. But that's part of being a entertainment location, and other things that we've been doing are just blowing up. Trying to make sure that we can balance our charitable donation, our charitable side, which we give on annual, roughly about 10% of our sales go to charity. And that's hard, especially when you're closing another location. People look at me like I'm nuts, but I think if you don't give back, nobody will come to you. And we've done everything from St. Jude's to Atlanta, the Atlanta Humane Society, to Atlanta Pride, to Loving Arms. We really do focus on getting people to know that we want to give back. The other side to it is we do crazy stuff. Like we started doing line dancing.
Nate,
Really? Okay.
Nate,
Yeah.
I got dancing up there.
I do like dancing, and so
Yeah.
you started line dancing. You're calling me out. I like that.
See,
All right.
Are you-
it's
you
really big in the Gen Z community, and I know Mo, you're not Gen Z, but it is very big. And it's kind of one of those things. As a business owner, we got to look at, okay, the millennials we know like beer. The Gen X, well, we're just a bunch of drunks. The boomers, we don't even, whatever. But Gen Z's coming
Just to
up.
throw out real quick, Thomas, Atlanta actually has a fairly decent boomer crew of beer
They do.
nerds here. So
They do.
They do.
And I
Yeah.
just give them a hard time. I'm just,
Yeah. No disrespect to the beer elders. I don't
No.
know if they have
Oh,
powers
no.
or
They
anything
have-
like that, but I just assume
Oh
they
my
all
God.
Shout
look
out
like
to the Atlanta
Yeah.
area beer elders. They've got a
Yeah.
nice little group going there. Yeah.
But Gen Z is coming of age, and my daughter turning 21 this month, my youngest one, and they're not drinkers, but we have to have a reason to bring them out. And we do comedy nights, we do drag bingo, we do trivia, we do all kinds of things, just to make sure that people know that there's a place. And what we've always tried to become is their third spot. And the idea, do you guys know what the third spot is?
Yep. Sure do.
Yes.
You got
Yeah.
home, you got work, you got your third spot. So,
Yeah. And it's where we've tried to figure out, and that's where you turn a lover of your beer into a fanatic of your beer. And we like to say, let the liquid talk. And that's why we don't try to get into the hype and all that kind of stuff. We're just going to be us. We're going to have fun. There's always going to be something going on. And if somebody were to come to me with a crazy idea, I hear it all the time. I got a crazy idea. 99.9% of the time, I'm going to say yes, because
it's like, go.
Yeah, let's have some fun.
That's it. I've let the liquid talk for me before, Thomas, and I've decided not to do that anymore. So it's a tricky thing.
I'm
there.
wondering.
It's a balance.
Did COVID kill the third spot? Because I haven't heard anybody use that term in a while, and it occurs to me that maybe pre-COVID, and I've had a few. It used to be a cigar shop, and I haven't been over, haven't done my traditional hangout at a cigar shop in a while, and that was killed by COVID basically. So yeah.
Well, we're seeing a pivot back. We're seeing people start to come back, and they're choosing. What we're finding is in all industry, just by reading journals, that people are choosing more selectively what they want to do. This is my niche. This is where I want to be. It used to be, I-75. Now it's a 4-lane.
Yeah,
It's not
and that's
Okay.
10 lanes.
I do think, Brian, to your point, I think we had a very noticeable and permanent change to our personalities in our lives because of COVID.
Yes.
And it's something,
Yes.
we've gone to my day job. I'm a recruiter, and I'm in the technical staffing industry. And, people wanted to be remote and wanted to work from home before. And now it's almost a demand of some people. I'll talk to them about a job. They're like, is it remote? I'm like, well, it's hybrid. And like, no, I'm only looking for remote. And there's a big battle now. You've probably seen the articles about it. Employers want people back in offices.
Yeah.
Employees want to work from home. And so we're currently facing that right now. But, I just speaking for myself, we were chatting this weekend when we set up camp there for the event. And we were talking about, me and Smalls got to talking about pre-COVID. My house was kind of the hangout. We had my garage was our brewery for, we home brewed. We had a little homebrew club that every Friday, once a month or something, but we had regular get-togethers, and we ate Little Caesars pizza and drank homebrew and talked about that.
Right.
But on Saturday, it was pretty much a given that we would be brewing a beer there, and probably 8 or 10 friends would just roam in and out throughout the day because they knew this is where we would be. And I just don't know, not only are we not doing that anymore, but I don't know many people that do. I think it just changed the structure of our lives there for some reason.
I do miss the tradition of just brewing a beer. The problem is if you do it every week, you build up such a big reserve of it that unless you have a lot of friends coming over and helping you drain all those kegs, you wind up with more beer than you can actually do anything with. So you had to stop at that point. But yeah, that was nice. Just this is what we're doing today. Saturday is brew day. It took most of the day, and then we'll share some beers afterwards and have some pizza.
And then the bottle
That's a good
shares
time.
that Brian was
Yeah.
talking about earlier. We used to get
Love bottle
together,
shares.
gosh, at least once a month. And then with the Reddit Atlanta crew, we do some. We had different breweries that would host us, and we do those. We do Thomas, as we mentioned, we did the collaboration brew with you at Schoolhouse Brewing, back in the day. So just things have changed. People just don't seem to be doing this stuff the same as they used to. And if you do try and get something together, y'all, let me tell you, all of y'all are flaky. Like 95% of you are really flaky and non-committal, and you weren't that way 5 years ago. So,
well, they're also older too. I mean, that's part of it. Have kids, that sort of thing.
Well, and the good news is, and I'll say there is good news. Let's clear.
Give it to us. Give it to us.
All right,
Thomas.
what's the good news?
We're seeing people come back, and are we going to see in the beer industry and the craft beer industry that zenith that we did see? Probably not. But when the dust settles, what you're going to have at the end of the day is the best beer. You're going to have the people that are here to make beer. People come in all the time and say, hey, you did it. You used to be a teacher. Now you're brewing beer. You must be living a life. Yeah, I'm having a great time. But if you want to make a little bit of money in craft beer right now, start with a lot, and then you'll end up with a very little.
That's
and right. But we're seeing people come back. We're seeing it. We're seeing camaraderie, and at the end of the day, when we have people smiling and saying, this is really amazing beer, and you've got a really amazing spot, and I just love this place, then who cares if somebody on Instagram in Oregon is drinking your beer and everybody wants it in all 50 states? At the end of the day, I want my community to want my beer.
Sure.
And that's where it's at.
Thomas, we're still seeing, we always throw out all these closures and that. Again, I've mentioned Reddit a few times today, just related to our topic, but there is user on there, I believe, goes by I'm going to give him a shout out because they're doing the Lord's work right now. But goes by Circus Bear Pants on Reddit. So shout out to Circus Bear Pants. But every day they're going through the list alphabetically and they're posting a Georgia brewery. So
yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. So for those that you don't know about, y'all, let me tell you this. I follow Georgia beer forums. I talk to Georgia brewers. I know the guild. I follow things along. And somehow there's a lot of little breweries opening up that I've never even heard of. If this had been 6, 7, 8 years ago, I don't know if I'm doing a poor job of keeping up with things, or they're just not doing as much hype in announcing things. Maybe there's more hype in general back then, but I'm just blown away by how many little breweries are popping up. So there's still, we're having doors closed. We're definitely having doors closed, but folks are still opening breweries. And some of these little breweries that we're seeing open in here, they've already got their fan clubs. There was one today. You know what? Give them a shout out. Linder Street Brewing in Bowersville, Georgia. I had not heard of Linder Street Brewing or Bowersville, Georgia before this.
I didn't know about either.
But they said that little brewery there and just popping up, and they're doing their thing, man. So shout out to that.
It's a sneak attack of breweries, is what it is. It's a sneak attack. They don't want us to know.
I have to think right now that if you open a brewery, you're pretty darn serious about it, because we did run into a period to where what we saw a lot of people with deep pockets that are just like, let's back a brewery because it's the thing to do, because it's the money to make. And we had several breweries open up that probably should have never opened their doors. But I'm going to hope that with the climate right now, if you're still putting the effort the money and that into opening a brewery, that there's a reason for it. I hope.
Well, and I'll say the reason why you're not seeing it as much as you think you should is marketing's harder now. Marketing is extremely hard. The algorithms change. Instagram just released their new. They never tell you what the algorithm is, but they kind of tell you what they want.
Right.
And it just dropped 2 weeks ago. I mean, how many of these small breweries in Bowersville, Georgia, are on marketing, are listening to marketing podcasts and reading marketing blogs every single day to know what's going on?
I think there's another factor here. Earlier on, like 2017, 2016, you'd want everybody in the state to know about your brewery because you might be a destination. Now you just want people around you to know about it. So maybe they don't care if Brian here in Atlanta knows about my brewery out in this town, Bowersville. I'm not even sure where it is. I'm just going to assume it's not as close to Atlanta as it could be. They don't care. They don't care about telling me because they don't think I'm going to drive out there, but they want everybody around them to know. So maybe they're focusing all of their efforts, all of their advertising more local, as I think all breweries should probably be doing these days, except for the very large ones. Focus on getting your local people there. Don't worry about getting, people from around the state and out of state, because how likely are they to drive into your brewery and hang out and have a beer,
So I feel you on that,
sense.
Brian. I do feel you on that, but I think the method for advertising locally or to a larger audience these days, especially if you're a no budget marketer or low budget marketer, is the same. You're going to use Instagram or Facebook or TikTok. You know what? Maybe they're announcing on TikTok. Maybe that's why I'm missing everybody, because I'm just not paying any attention to TikTok at all.
I'm not either. Yeah.
And and Thomas, to that, we haven't posted much on Instagram for quite a while. And to be honest, with the way our lives change and we weren't going out as much during the week, we're working remotely and that, I just don't have content to post. And Instagram wants me to put something. I think they want you to post something once every 10 minutes, 24 hours a day, in order to make the algorithm like you. And, it's like, I've got stuff once, twice a week that's worth sharing. Is really the
every 10 minutes is a lot of drinking, even for me. I'm just kidding.
Even for Brian, exactly.
Even for me, it's a
lot.
But
Thomas, on that, you're a cheesy person.
Yeah, thank you.
You throw it out there. You lean into it, and I'll be honest, Thomas. I think being yourself and being that type of person, people connect with that. But I've seen your videos. You throw it out there. You're a superstar.
I'm getting a little verklempt.
King of the cheese, man. King of the cheese.
I thought verklempt when you're doing that. That's you did it well. Yeah.
So it's
talk amongst yourselves.
It's not just that. You have to do a deep dive into it, and it is a business. And that could be a whole different podcast. Actually, Brewdogs was on the social media, the millennial influencers podcast just the other day. Listened to that one. Didn't really take much out of it, but it was still something to listen to. I think hashing that out is, if you, like you just said, if you're sincere and you are yourself and you can just do what you want, if you're a serious person, be serious. Don't try to be funny on Instagram, TikTok, Reddit, whatever.
Right.
But for me, it's easy for me to be self-deprecating funny because, look at me. It's easy to do.
That's true. I get where you're coming from there, Thomas.
So, it does bring people in because people know me, but I'm also, Justin and I, my partner, are both the brand. And I told you on Saturday, one of the things that I live by is something that Nick Tanner at Cherry Street told me a long time ago. And it's one of his taglines is know your brewer. When I opened up, he said, you have to be out there. You have to be the one selling your beer. You have to be the one behind the bar. You have to be the one on camera. And eventually you can back off. And he's able to back off now. and he's taken hits, and he makes some of the best beer in the Southeast. I'm not even going to say in the state. They make some of the best beer in the Southeast.
They did get a GABF medal this year, finally. So shout out to them. Yeah.
Well, coconut porter, let's be honest.
Yeah. That was probably due one for a long time. That's fantastic beer.
Yeah. Shut your mouth. That's a damn good beer.
Shut your mouth.
So yeah, I think that you got to put it in. And I think that these smaller breweries that know that because they're from small towns. And I think you're going to start seeing more breweries doing better in smaller towns that have been neglected for a long period of time. I was talking to you about Carrollton. There's a great brewery out there that I just love, Local Ties. And those guys are just phenomenal people. And they're making good beer, and I really appreciated it. So I tell everybody if they're, somebody says, what brewery should I know about? Them, because you're
like, well, Schoolhouse, duh. That's it. You can stop there.
Nah.
And that's another thing too, talking about these breweries and supporting ties into everything else we said. In 2018, Brian and I visited every single brewery in the state of Georgia. And we even visited a couple that were under construction. And I think the total was 85 or something like that.
That's about right. That's
so
85-ish.
So even at that time, Thomas, it was getting tough for us to hit everybody. But we're 190s, or Nate, I think you threw some numbers around that you'd seen recently, but we're even with the closures, the other ones opens, we're like 180, 190. Even if we went to a new brewery every single week, we're talking 3 years to get to every brewery in the state there. So it's just not possible. When there were 12 breweries in the Atlanta metro area, then I could go to the same brewery 2-3 times a month and pop over to someone else. Brian and I used to go out, and any given Saturday, we would probably hit 2, 3, or 4 breweries.
Yep.
And so a couple of new ones and a couple of your favorite spots that you hit every week, and it's just, it's harder to do that these days for sure.
And that's what I tell everybody when they say, what can you do to help craft brewing? What can the buyer do? First, go to a brewery twice a month. Go to any brewery. It doesn't matter if it's the same one or anything. Go to a brewery twice a month. Just show them some love. The second one is vote for small business and vote for the it doesn't have to be for the brewery, whichever the small business is. And in our state, it is the brewery that is the smallest of the business. We need reform, and that is what's going to make craft beer even stronger in Georgia. And lastly, like their post, follow them, and tell your friends. Those are the 3 things you can do to make breweries better in the state.
Good stuff. Thomas,
take
them to the brewery, play some pinball, have a good time. Thomas, Monty, Schoolhouse Brewing. Thomas, if folks want to see what the heck is going on, I think you mentioned already, where can they get the latest on Schoolhouse Brewing?
Schoolhousebeer.com, on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, you name it. We're on Twitter, we're on Snapchat, you name it. We've got a place for you, whatever you want to do. Only Farmers, we're on that.
Awesome. OnlyFans. So that costs a little bit though, if you want to join that. Check it out. So Thomas, thanks so much, man. We appreciate you joining us.
Thanks, man. And I hope to do this again sometime.
For sure. Well, y'all, we are going to wrap up this show. Thank you so much for joining us. We hope that you all have a fantastic week. And don't forget to drink local. Cheers.
Cheers.
Clear. We did it. We did it. Thomas, good time. So we have to keep it right in an hour because we're streaming on Instagram, and Instagram gives you exactly 60 minutes and they cut your stream. So
No, I hope I didn't take you over.
no,
you're
no,
good.
No,
Nate
right
keeps
up
an
to
eye
the-
on it. So we've been live for an hour and 33 seconds right now. So we're right on it there. Yeah, there was actually we could have kept talking, but yeah, cool. We do. So you know what? Let's wrap up the live stream. Y'all, if you are one of our Patreon supporters and we'd love for you to support us on Patreon, just go to patreon.com/beer guys. You'll get access to our Discord server, some cool swag, and the shows will go out to you before anybody else. And also, Patreon supporters, we are going to drop the link in the Discord server right now, and you can come hang out and have a beer with us for the after party. With all that said, have a good one, y'all, and we will see you next week.